was not necessarily something that was very visible or tangible to other people, but was very tangible and visible to me. And I had to type it out. Here's a little backstory. My faith began as a 6-year-old living in Hutchinson, Kansas, and I was cleaning out a toy closet with my mother, and we found old Sunday school papers. And on those papers were pictures, and because of those pictures, we started a conversation that led my mom to talk more about Christ and heaven, and that conversation led me to know that I wanted to go to heaven. So right there in the middle of our mess, I prayed and I asked Jesus to come into my life, and that's where my faith started. I grew up in a Christian home, and my parents were very active in the ministry. While I was young, my parents served at several churches, and their ministries included the bus ministry, children's ministry, youth ministry, choir, all the stuff that goes along with that. And when I was 13, my dad was called to pastor a church in a stinking small town. We're talking 1,200 people in southwestern Kansas. And so because it was so small, ministry became a whole family affair. Bulletin boards, banquets, missions conferences, vacation Bible school, choir cantatas, youth rallies, children's programs, it was all part of the package. So I had all of that experience. And so by the time I graduated and went to college, my dad and the congregation was pretty dependent upon me. I was the piano player, all that stuff. But, you know, during all of that, my dad taught me to be a hard worker with passion. And my mom taught me to be a perfectionist. That's not always a great thing. But I carried these traits with me to the next stage of my life. So in college, I was also a leader on the campus, and I served in lots of ways: the choir president, band president, core staff, Act 1, a lot of stuff. So when I graduated with my bachelor's, and I got a teaching job at an area high school back in Hutchinson, Kansas. My life had kind of gone full circle. Joel and I had just gotten engaged, and life seemed to be going pretty good. I knew who I was, I knew what I wanted, I knew what I was good at, and I had some pretty obvious talents, and I was using them for God, or so I thought. Joel and I got married at Westside Baptist Church, which is where I accepted Christ, in 2004, and we began serving God together. I really wanted a master's and a PhD in choral conducting, and so that was my goal, and that's what I was pushing towards. But I needed a couple of years in teaching experience before I could apply for grad school. So I just focused myself into teaching and serving at church. And at Westside, I served in the choir, doing the piano, doing the PowerPoint, doing vacation Bible school, the 5th and 6th grade Sunday school class, being a community group leader, worship team leader, children's musicals, the Sparky director, Easter drama, yada, 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 okay? And just remember, my parents taught me hard work, passion, and perfectionism. So in December of 2004, what I thought I wanted in my life changed drastically. It was 6 months into our marriage, and we found out that we were expecting our first child. Taggart was born in June of 2005, and very quickly, my desires of a master's and then a PhD disappeared. They didn't seem as important anymore. And so I focused on my family and on my church. At my 6-week checkup after Taggart was born, my doctor felt a nodule on my thyroid. So she sent me for some checkups and some more testing. And a couple weeks later, we found out that we were expecting our next child. And so the doctors were concerned about the thyroid, but that kind of went on the back burner. So because I was pregnant, they couldn't do all the testing, and so they just waited until after Toby was born. So just 11 months after Taggart was born, Toby was born. And so in August of 2006, at the age of 25, after Toby was born, it was confirmed that I did have thyroid cancer. So this was a big blow to us. Joel and I went through a lot of emotions. Anger, fear, I don't know, it was a lot of emotions, and in the end, eventually hope. I ended up having multiple surgeries between the end of 2006 and the end of 2007 with some radiation. And it was a really hard year. There were a lot of miracles during that year, but it would take too long to tell you the whole story. Our faith was tested, and after that year was over, I thought I had learned what God wanted me to learn. Because of the surgeries, I couldn't sing for several months, and that was really hard. I had to teach every day in a choir classroom without being able to demonstrate what I wanted. And it taught me patience. It also taught me a little bit that I didn't know I had a little bit of vanity issues. I had lots of scarring that I had to deal with on my neck and my face. And so another year went by, and as I healed, we just continued to serve in the church. But one of the biggest stretches in my faith didn't happen with cancer. It happened with my knee. Throughout my adult life, I had suffered with my right kneecap dislocating numerous times. So we're talking like 30 times between 8th grade and, anyway, it was a lot. And most of the time, it would go back in by itself. But one time, it didn't. And that night was agony. It was awful. Joel had to call the ambulance, and an hour and a half later, in the emergency room, lots of morphine, they finally put it back in. But that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. At that point, we decided we had to do something. My kids were 2 and 3, and I just didn't want my kneecap to dislocate and Joel not to be around. So to the surgeon we went. Surgery required the doctors to cut through my shin bone and line it up with my femur and then screw it back together. And it had to be completely non-weight bearing for at least 9 weeks. So we decided to do this surgery the day after my school ended so I'd have the summer to heal. So in May of 2008, that's when I had my surgery, and that is when my life changed. I couldn't do anything. Everything had to be done for me. Everything. It was humiliating, most of it. But it was kind of cool for about 2 days because everything was brought to me, and everything was, I just got to lay there. But that wasn't so fun after a while. My parents had to move in with us to take care of the kids. That was stressful. All of my duties at the church, somebody else had to pick them up. Joel had to help me do everything. Besides working a full-time job and volunteering at the church, he had to be my full-time caretaker. And we had a 2- and 3-year-old at the same time. I went from being this very active teacher, mother, wife, church guru to nothing. I could not do anything. It was so difficult. It was also depressing, and it was humbling. I spent a lot of time with God, and I realized I was working really hard at not being emotional. I realized that the whole time I thought I was serving him, I was serving me. My identity was not in Christ, but it was what I could do and do well. I had built myself up to where I didn't think God could do it without me. That sitting in a wheelchair on my front porch, waiting for my dad to bring me breakfast, I realized I was broken. And there was someone to pick up the pieces wherever I had left off in every aspect of my life. Throughout my time that summer, I came to understand that God didn't need me. I needed him. I had allowed pride through perfection and passion to enter into everything I did, making it my identity and who I was, when Christ wanted to be my identity. God had given me the talent and passion for music and leadership and people, and I had failed to recognize this wholeheartedly. My journey entered a depression where I went the other way, the total opposite way in my confidence. I was totally stripped of all my energy, and I was just plain sad. My faith felt very weak, but through time, God proved himself faithful, and he led me through it. He taught me that humility is not saying, I'm no good, or I can't do that. but understanding that he gave me specific talents and abilities unique to wherever he has me. Much like my leg, my heart healed that summer. It took some pain, and it took some stretching and building and work, a lot of hard work, but I was back. So God doesn't need me, but he wants me. And he wants my identity to be in him first, and then everything else, so that when everything is stripped away, I am still whole.